Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Imperfectly Empowered podcast. When Amy Daughters reconnected with her old pal Dana on Facebook, she had no idea how it would change her life. Though the two women hadn't had any contact in 30 years, when Amy learned that Dana's son Parker was battling cancer, she felt supernaturally led to write the pair weekly letters. When Parker died, Amy continued to write Dana. Eventually, Dana wrote back, and the two became pen pals. This transformational experience left Amy wondering if my life could be so changed by someone I considered just a Facebook friend. What would happen if I wrote all my Facebook friends a letter? Here to share her inspirational story, welcome best-selling author of Dear Dana, That Time I Went Crazy and Wrote All 550 of My Facebook Friends a Handwritten Letter. This was the coolest book. This was such a fun read, and I say fun in the loosest sense. It's like fun if you enjoy the range of emotions from sobbing to laughing, which
Right.
I consider fun. Not everyone does, but it's such an incredible story, and I would love to hear some of the backstory to the story and how you got to this place. For those of you who are going to buy the book, which I hope is everyone that listens to this, I want to tell you that my number one takeaway that we can filter the rest of this conversation through, and you said it in the book, is this idea of trying to create meaning in what feels like a meaningless world of social media. And this has just done that so beautifully, trying to make meaning of that and creating meaning in it, because this is the world that we live in. And I just think this story is such a testament to how, first of all, God's using everything in our lives, including the mess that is social media, to bring about beauty. So anyway, that's what we're going to filter this conversation through. It's really a beautiful story, but give us some of the backstory.
Right. Well, I like to tell the story in the frame of I was just minding my own business. I was going about life just like we all do.
Yeah.
And I got on Facebook one day like we all do. And I'd always there's this girl who I'd worked at a summer camp with like 30 years previously, like 1986. And her name had always been bouncing around on my head. I think that's God now. Every once in a while I'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, what happened to Dana? What happened to Dana? And so one day, what happened to Dana coincided with me on Facebook. And so I put Dana's name in, and there she is. It's Dana from
Mhm.
camp from 1986. We have no mutual friends, and of course I friend request her because that doesn't really matter. And that's not like a meaningful move. Like everyone does that. So I friend request her. She accepts my friendship request, and then I stalk her. I look at her page. I'm like, this is Dana, and I had heard that Dana we probably spent 6 weeks together at this camp, and we were both very loud and very thought we were funny, and so we immediately connected. But as far as like real solid lucid memories, I didn't have a lot. I just knew she meant something to me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I guess her name would have popped back out of my head. So I look at her page, and my immediate takeaway, because I had heard she had a bunch of kids and lived in Louisiana, all true, but my
Yeah.
first takeaway was her hair was different. Because like when we were at camp, it was all like,
This is Facebook, right? These are the things that we notice. Let's be real.
right.
Yeah, so
I
true.
have a lot of depth. And I'm admitting now my amount of depth as a human being,
Listen, we all relate. We all relate. You're just honest about it.
But she had like a perm, like the 80s perm going, and it was brown. And now her hair was straight and blonde. I was like, what happened? Keratin. I mean, there's lots that's happened. But really the first thing I saw was she had 5 kids. She had 4 daughters and 1 son. The son was the youngest child, and she was with him at St. Jude in Memphis, Tennessee, and they were fighting cancer. So when you hear St. Jude, this is a
Yeah.
serious situation. And
Yeah.
so I got drawn in the story as a mom, as a person, as a human being, as a whatever. I immediately was like, wow, I know this person kind of sort of, but
Yeah.
she's going through what none of us even want to think about. So then step two of our connection was she started to ask, like I started following along in the background with no involvement. And she started to ask every once in a while for people to pray. Now she didn't say what she believed or what she didn't believe. She just asked for people to pray. I've always liked to pray, so I started to include her in my prayers. And there was this sense of urgency that absolutely did not fit
Mm.
the circumstances. And the other framework of the story is like different levels of me being crazy. And I frame that as God like nudging me along,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I absolutely, if you look back on the story, it looks like I'm wacko, and so
Yeah. But it also is proof of, you say this in the book, which I absolutely love, is that there are supernatural threads that wind all through our lives, and there's tugs on them. And they make no sense in the moment. And to the human perspective, it's like, wait, what? You're being tugged to do what? And it's because the Lord's literally pulling this thread. And when you learn to get more sensitive to that, you start to recognize, like, oh, no, this is the Lord pulling this thread, and I'm just going to follow.
right.
And so, yeah, not crazy to me. Yes. Amen.
Yeah. Yeah, amen to that. And I think that's absolutely was. And I think a lot of times we only can really see that in hindsight,
Yes,
but
right.
the hope, and the book says this because the story says this. This is a great story. The hope is that that is happening all around us all the time. We just don't know
Yes.
it. We're all
Yes.
living some kind of part of an answer prayer, like some kind of magnificent thing that we know nothing about. And this story is such a
Mhm.
great testament to that. So
Mm.
she asks for prayer. I pray. Um, Parker, this is the son's name, eventually goes into remission. So, and I did feel a sense of urgency about the praying. I did not contact her. I contacted her at one point and said, I'm praying for you when she was going through a really hard time. And she responded, but we didn't have she didn't know I was
Yeah.
like prayer. She knew nothing about me. And so he goes into remission. They go back home and it kind of goes on a back burner for me. I was still thinking about him. I prayed for him some, but then at the end of that year, Parker gets sick again. He relapses. She goes back to Memphis. And she's like, we really need people to pray for us because this is, you could tell it was
Mm.
bad. And
Mm.
so I'm like out of nowhere, and I'm a writer. And I'm at the time I was writing about college football, and I'd like have a Monday for a Tuesday and a Tuesday for a Wednesday. And it was like Sunday. I had gone to church, and I was like, oh my gosh, here's what I'm gonna start doing. I'm gonna start writing them
Mm.
letters. I'm going to send letters to the Ronald McDonald House in Memphis, Tennessee. Okay, that's crazy because she doesn't really know who I am. I haven't seen her in 30 years. I look like a random stalker. And what's the
Doesn't
address to
matter.
her?
We're Facebook friends. I'm writing her letters. We're good.
Right. And I hadn't written anybody a letter in 20 years probably.
Right.
And so
Right.
it wasn't like I was some girl on some letter writing thing. And
Yeah.
so, and I was so invested, and that's the thing, the story, I was so fully, and again, I think it's God. I was so invested without knowing it. And I knew just enough. And so I sat down that Sunday and I wrote the first letter and I mailed it on Monday. And for like 6 to 8 weeks, I'm mailing these people letters. And basically the letter said, I'm thinking about you, I'm praying for you. And then, my personality is I think I'm funny. So then I'd be like, add some funny stuff and then be like,
Yeah.
I'm still skinny, I'm still hot, blah, 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 all that. And so I
You guys, the
just
book is hilarious. She's an excellent writer. I laughed out loud multiple times. It's brilliant. It was very, very funny. You are
thank
funny
you. Thank you.
and you are
It's,
hot. All of the above. I affirm you.
oh, thank you. I receive your affirmations. Um, so then you can tell Dana's posts, they became the shift,
Yeah.
towards it's only like I said, 6 to 8 weeks at the most. And then other people are posting about Dana. And again,
Mm.
guys, I know nothing about this family. I have not even liked any of her posts. I'm on the outside end, but I am sending these letters. And then I come home one Sunday after church, and there's this devastating, and it's in the book, the post, Parker passed away. He was 15
Yeah.
years old.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with me. I cried, and I'm not a crier. But then like I sent a condolence card, and then I was like, so what do I do? Like I felt so called to this whole send the card thing. And I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know what to do. It had nothing to do with me. And I was over feeling it completely. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep writing her letters. It was kind of a
Yeah.
clear it wasn't a calling, like there wasn't things that came down. I didn't went in a field with a white
Yeah.
dress on. It
Yeah.
was just, I'm going to keep praying for her and writing the letters.
Mhm.
So now I have to stalk someone to find out where to mail these letters in Louisiana. So I find her
Mhm.
husband's address at work, and I just crazily start sending her letters. So 4 months I'm sending letters to this law office address, and she messages me on Facebook and says, hey, my friends think this is hilarious. Hey, here's my home address. Like, please stop sending those letters to that address. But in that message, she said, you have no idea what the letters mean to me.
Mm.
And then
Mm.
that was just like that lit the fire. And I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
here we go. And so after a couple months after that, I go to my mailbox and there's a letter from Dana. And so this kicks off 2 years of us just communicating through the US mail. I would
Mm.
write her every week. She would write me about every other week. We still write each other. But these 2 years that we spent writing, it was profound because, we didn't know, I didn't know if she was reading my letters, when or if she was reading them. She had no idea when I was reading her stuff. We shared on a level that made no sense. She shared about her grief. I looked at my life from the outside in. We didn't know, I didn't know what her politics were. I didn't know I knew she believed in God, but I didn't know, I didn't know
Yeah,
which religious
sure. What does
box
that
she
mean?
fit into.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it didn't really matter. And none of that mattered. But then we started to trust each other. Like she would say stuff like, she would tell me something about one of her kids, and she'd be like, I've never told anybody this, but I know I can trust you. We literally have not spoken a word to each other in like 34 years. But
Hmm.
it was a very intimate relationship, and there was zero expectations of anything. And
Hmm.
she told me after the fact, like with the grief, she was living life with these four daughters who'd lost their brother, the husband who had lost his son, and her. And so she said if she walked into a room and they seemed like they were doing okay, she wasn't going to be like, oh my God, I'm about to lose all my stuff. And so she would write me, and she would write
Mm.
about the grief. And I didn't respond a whole lot about the grief because I realized I didn't know what I was talking about. So I just kept telling her, I love you, I'm praying for you. And she told me they would wait for those letters to come every week.
Mm.
So about 6 months into writing Dana, well, the when we into the full exchange between Dana and I sat back and I was like, if God can do this with this one Facebook girl, like this
Mm.
random girl with the hair deal, then
Mm.
what else is out there? And I was like, you know what would be really nuts? I'm going to write all these people a letter. And so I
Mm.
got stationery made. I put everyone's name on an Excel spreadsheet. I shoved them all into a box. And then day one, I had a journal and wrote down, here's the rules of my project. I'm kind of a numbers girl. And so I
Yeah.
had it all lined out. Here's the rules. And I started pulling names out of the box. And I was like, oh, now I got to write these people letters. And I never thought I would finish. And the lack of, this wasn't an intentional thing to start with. I had no idea what was going to happen. It
Mm.
blew up my life, and it
Mm.
changed the way I look at everything. And I didn't even intend to write this book. I was about 250 letters in, and I was like, this is a story that has to be shared.
Yeah. Yeah. And you captured it so beautifully. And one of the things that I think was a through line for me in reading it is that people crave the written word from someone, from another real life human, whether it be spoken, written. It's this idea of um, the difference because we can type something and send it. We can write something and send it. And yet there's data to suggest, even in business, there was a poll that was put out and they asked what was one of the most meaningful things that you have ever received from a company, from your employer, and it was a handwritten card personal to that employee. Not just like, hey, thanks for what you do, but actually calling out specific things that were appreciated about them, but it was handwritten. And just this idea of it's like people want to feel seen and heard, and it's not happening via social media, in truth. And that I just thought
Correct.
was so neat. Like you could have written the same thing on Facebook, but there was something about receiving an actual physical card that was handwritten to their address that made that much of a difference. And I just think that's fascinating. Like, what have we lost that has made such a transformational difference for you and for other people is an interesting thing.
Right. And I think that, I had that experience over and over again, and I did not
Yeah.
understand what it was going to mean to people. But 600 times later, here's what I think. If you go to let's say I go to my mailbox and you mail me a letter, and let's say just we went to high school together, and we had some kind of meaningful relationship in high school. If I go out to my mailbox and pick a letter out from you, and it's not irregardless of what you said. I mean, even if you like do 4 lines or 4 pages, it doesn't matter. But if I go out to that mailbox and I take that out of the mailbox, here's what I'm going to understand right away. Here's what you had to do, Anna, to make this happen. You had to
Yeah.
sit down somewhere in your
Mm,
space. You had to find an envelope, you had to find a card, a letter, a note, whatever it is. You had to find a pen. You spent time just thinking about me and writing it down. And then it's next
mm.
level because then you had to put it in the envelope. You had to seal it. Oh, wait, Anna, where are the stamps? And then I'm going to know that
What are
th-
stamps? What?
right. And then you didn't just sit down and hit
Yeah.
send. You had to get in your minivan and drive
Mm,
across town and find a mailbox. And so it is so intentional and deliberate. I'm going to open it up, and the first thing I'm going to think, even before I open it, oh my God, I matter to another human
mm,
specifically, and you are
mm.
going to blow the doors off my head and my heart. And then you put on top of it, depending on what you wrote, and it's funny because how I figured out what to write was just an end to a means. I was like, oh, so what am I going to say? Right? Like, what are you
Mm,
even going to say to these people? Well, I went and looked at their Facebook profiles,
mhm.
and over again, I was like, okay, number one, these people are amazing because I didn't know that you went on to do these amazing things with this podcast and your morning, which I love, your whole
Oh, thank
morning
you.
team. But I would have told you, hey, Anna, oh my God, you're rocking it. And I didn't know that. I am so proud that we were
Yeah.
friends. And then I'd be like, and
Mm,
you know what else, Anna? You helped me when my grandmother died. You stood by that payphone when that jerk broke up with me, and you made a real difference. We ate lunch every day together for 3 years. I have not seen you in 25 years, but that means something to me. And I looked at your little kids on Facebook, and I'm just so happy to get a window into your world. This all came naturally. I'm not some rock star of a person. I'm just another
mhm.
skinny girl trying to stay married over here, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
But saying
Amen.
those things, my
Yeah.
grateful meter went off the chart. I was like, oh my God, God put all these people in my life at the right time. But the
Hmm.
biggest takeaway of all was if I go through that process of writing you that letter, and this was especially true if you wrote me back, but that wasn't really the point. If we've had this meaningful exchange and the only thing on the line is goodwill, then all of a sudden, all those dividing lines that divide us right now,
Yeah.
politics, religion, gender equality, whatever it is, they still
Yeah.
matter, but it
Yeah.
slowly starts to dissipate.
Fade. Yeah. Yeah. And I think what's beautiful about it is it humanizes us. This is the problem with the virtual world that we live in is it's so easy to dehumanize each other, meaning the things that we would write oftentimes on a social media post or virtually, we would have a much more difficult time saying to somebody's face. But it's like they don't feel as human because all we see is just this very intangible screen with what's like a photo or an image that oftentimes does not even accurately reflect who we really are. And I think that is what's so beautiful about this concept that you have um, written about and that you speak about is I think it humanizes us and it's empathetic in a way that we're missing virtually.
Right. And I think it's on both ends of the transaction. That was beautifully said.
Mm,
Because I think for the writer of the letter, that deliberate intentional task means you have to consider the person
yes.
as a flesh and bone living creature as opposed to this part of a Facebook profile. And on the
Mhm.
other side of the transaction, the person feels seen and thought of,
Yes.
and it makes them feel important and special. I told every single person who received a letter in the first paragraph, I was like, here's why I'm doing this. Like, here's Dana and Parker. This is my why.
Yeah.
And I was very implicit. I am writing every single one of my Facebook friends a letter. It's not like I'm writing the ones who I really know. And that was
Yeah.
one of the rules. If I pulled your name out, I had to figure it out and write you a letter, even before I found your address. But even though I said that over and over and over again, people were like, "You chose me. I was one of the chosen ones. I was picked."
Mm,
And that is a 100% reflection on how it made them feel.
mm, mm. Which is such an interesting, it's humbling to me because it's like I think in my own life how easy it is the busyness and the hustle. It is so easy to miss those moments where you slow down and consider how my behavior could make somebody feel. Meaning, like, I could take the time right now. even standing in line waiting to pick up my kids from school beside a woman. Maybe she's had a terrible day. Something as simple as noticing her, seeing her, even if it's as superficial as acknowledging, like, her hair looks gorgeous today. Right?
Right.
It's just that idea of like, your hair looks beautiful today. It's just like those little things where we're living like this, right? On our phones. We literally walk around like this and we
Right.
don't see people anymore. We don't look up. We don't look at people's eyes. And that's to me what I see here is it's this reminder to look up, look at people, take a moment to invest.
Right. And it's so that's the investment, like what you're going to do is it's going to take about 15 minutes of your time and 66
Mm,
cents. And that's if
mm,
you're going to mail a letter. But you can leave a note in someone's car or on
yeah.
someone's perfect example. Dana and I are BFFs now. And so she was at my house. We live about 4 hours apart now. She was at my house, I don't know, 8 weeks ago, and she left a sticky note on my husband's mirror, on the guest room mirror, and on this is just who she is. It turned out
Hmm.
God knew who they were hooking up. Like she's an amazing,
Yes.
loud, really
Yeah.
fun, out of control person. And then one on my computer monitor. Okay, this was 8 weeks ago. And but all three of those notes are still up because they
Mm,
meant so much to us. And she's somebody
yeah.
who's in our regular life, but mine, I'll read it. You, Amy, are making a difference in the world because it's right here.
Yeah.
And I left that up because she didn't have to do that, but it's that
Yeah.
small little intentional moment where I felt seen and heard, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to take it down. My husband's was like,
Yeah.
thank you for putting up with my loud mouth and my shenanigans.
Yes.
But my husband's
Yes.
not a sentimental person. He's not taking it off his bathroom counter, but that's the power of a handwritten note
Yeah.
or letter. And it's off the chain what it can do.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. Well, what Amy didn't realize she was signing up for with this interview is we're going to play a little quick game of Would You Rather. We're going to get to know her a little bit better, and then we're going to tap into more of her expert advice on how to rewrite your life by writing a letter. Okay, here we go. Would you rather chicken or a hamburger?
Oh boy.
Oh, she's like, this is stressful. I'm never coming back here again.
So strong. I'd pick both because I'm hungry. But I'd, I'd I'd
Amen.
I'd pick chicken probably. You know,
Chicken.
yeah.
Okay. Would you rather camp in the woods or a house on the beach?
Oh boy, I like both those too. I would have to go with the beach just because of the sound of the waves.
Where do you guys live? Super side note.
Oh, I live in Houston, and Dana
You're in
lives in
Houston,
Lafayette.
Texas. Okay.
Yeah, Lafayette, Louisiana is where she lives. So
Yeah, gotcha. Where do you guys vacation? Do you have a lot of good beaches in Texas? This is clearly my geographical ignorance coming in here.
no,
I mean,
the
I know you're
beach.
surrounded by water, but are there good beaches?
No, the best beaches close to us is Alabama. You got to go the other direct. You got to go
Oh,
East Coast.
interesting.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
going towards Alabama, going towards 30A and Florida, those are the best beaches because there are beaches in Texas, but it's a different kind of sand and a different
Yeah.
kind of, and so really it's worth your while to drive 4 or 5 hours towards Dana and past her, and then pick her
Yes.
up on the way and then go there.
Yeah. That sounds like a plan to me. Would you rather dog or cat?
Dog.
Do you have dogs?
I had a dog that passed away, yes. And I like cats too,
Oh.
but I like the dogs. So
Clearly, Amy, what we're hearing here is that she's a both and person. We're both and.
yeah,
Love it.
that's
Would you rather go water skiing or scuba diving?
scuba diving.
Have you been?
No, but I've been snorkeling, so I got a little bit of an idea, maybe,
A little taste. Yeah,
Yeah.
a little taste. I feel like scuba diving would be right up your alley. I feel like you would like it. Would you rather shop online or in a store?
Oh boy, I like to shop online. I like
Where's
to.
your favorite place to shop online?
Oh, I like eBay and Amazon, but I
Yeah.
love buying stuff inappropriately on Instagram. That's one of my favorite hobbies. It's like a sport. I like to see. I just got a
It
dress
really
yesterday. It's my Instagram dress. I'm very excited about it.
is it going to be for real or not? That is the Russian roulette that you play buying on Instagram. It's like, is it going to fall apart as soon as I open the package, or is it actually going to be nice? It's so
Right.
true. Shoes are where I get stuck. Instagram, it's like as soon as you just breathe in the
Oh,
direction of an ad, suddenly now they know exactly what to put on your profile. For me, it's always shoes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
little dresses and like items that I could prank somebody with, like fake outlets or like stuff, stuff
Wait,
that
where are you
like.
shopping?
Well,
Wait,
you just
fake
got.
outlets? That sounds fun.
Oh yes, like little like stickers. They're not stickers though. They're like that because you
You
can
just
take
put
them
them on
back
the
off.
wall.
Yeah, you go to somebody's house and like add a few outlets so they're trying to plug their phone into it. I mean, it's a great few little gags.
Wait, I love that. Is there like just a gag store that you shop on, or are these things just like popping up?
They pop
It's like
up,
the
but then
Holy Spirit's
Amazon,
literally just dropping these gag ads
right,
for
right.
Instagram.
Because I
So
like to,
they're
yeah.
not, it's not a store specifically. It's just
No, just stuff that people who are immature might enjoy.
like you and me. I actually really want to know where these stickers are. That sounds highly amusing. I want to do it to my kids, actually.
Yeah, I can hook you up. Yeah, my kids
Oh,
know how to
send
look
it.
for them now. Yeah, I
Send
got you
it.
covered.
Okay, awesome. I'm so excited. Oh, my son's gonna be so mad. It's gonna be great. Um, you've talked about the power, the transformational power that you experienced of writing letters. And towards the end of the book, you share some of your takeaways um that came out of this story. And I would love to hear what are some of these takeaways. I mean, you guys, you need to get this book. Truly, you will laugh, you will cry. It's really inspirational. It has been for me. But I would love to hear some of the just like the overall life lessons. You shared some of them already, but things that like you are going to see a change in your life when you take these steps.
Right. Um, well, I think, to frame that first of all, and this is what I love about your early morning habit, because one of my early morning habits is, and it's almost like adrenaline, the note letter writing thing for me. And it's
Yeah.
almost like I can't, because if you would ask me after letter 580, when's the next time you're going to write a letter, I've been like, never, except for to Dana,
Never.
because I'm
Yeah,
done
right.
with these letters, you know.
Yes.
But every day I sit down, every single day I sit down and I write somebody a
Mm,
card or a note or a letter. Because first of all, that 18 months I was writing those letters, that was the absolute best version of me. That's who I want to be if
mm,
I could be one person.
mm,
So that opens up my gratitude. That opens up my perspective that there are other people out there. It doesn't just honor the story. It's like that's a part of me, and and what I'm doing now is, I'm on Facebook like everybody else, and I screenshot when I see someone's lost somebody, or
mm,
I screenshot when someone's won an award, or I screenshot when blah blah blah, congratulations, sympathy, thank you, and I have a little notebook and I write it down, and then I send one or two cards a day, because like I said, that keeps me like between the beacons, like I grateful, keeps my life in perspective, makes me feel like I'm making a difference in the world, because it seems too simple, it seems almost too easy, but it's not,
yeah, yeah.
so I'm not sure that was a life
And it
takeaway.
resonates. It resonates with people. I mean, this story, this book was featured on all kinds of massive outlets. Like, share some of the places that you have shared this story.
Well, the most incredible, I mean, the top of the top was, Kelly Clarkson had Dana and I on the show together. And, to
Mm,
go to LA to be
yeah,
on the Kelly Clarkson show with your best friend, and her share the story of Parker, because that's where this all starts,
yeah,
because it's no
yeah,
coincidence, friends, that Parker loved Jesus,
yeah,
and Parker
yeah,
wanted to be a youth minister,
yeah,
and I'm not going to say, it's hard to say, because it will be forever hard to try to frame Dana's loss in some kind of, especially now that I'm best friends with her, in some kind of,
yeah,
oh my God, this is so great, because
yeah,
it's not. I mean, she's going to suffer every day for the rest of her life,
yeah,
and that's what made writing the book hard. That's what made,
yeah.
but that family has been along for, every single step of the way. But we were on the Kelly Clarkson show. I mean, that was our biggest hit,
Yeah.
and you're right.
Yeah.
It's because, I'm proud of the book, but it's the story. And to me, it's
Mm,
it's God's story. Everybody can frame it however they want to, because I wrote to so many people who don't believe what I believe. Um,
yeah.
but it's the story, and it's the power of individual connections, and it's the hope,
Yeah.
that we offer each other, because I think we're desperately seeking for something
Yeah.
that's out there. And yes, social media has a lot to be accountable for, but you and I wouldn't be having this conversation without it. So I look at it as a
That's
jump
right.
off
Yeah,
point.
you're right.
It's
Yes.
a jump off
Yes.
point for real relationships. If I look at my list of friends now, if I looked at it at the beginning of that project, because I did, it was like this list of random people,
Yes.
I that I knew to different degrees. But now it's this treasure trove of actual human
Mm.
relationships, and we all have that. And it's not about writing a 17-page letter. It's not about writing 600 letters. It's about doing something intentional, like you said, between you and another human being that has nothing but goodwill or hope on the line. That's what the message is.
I love that. And something that you said in here that really resonated with me because I've seen this in my own life, and especially as a virtual entrepreneur, this is something that I have had to grow in. Is you mentioned that you don't need a response from someone to make a difference in their life. Though we will get glimpses, we can never know the full impact that our actions have on other people. While we can't gauge the ripple effect of our attempts at goodness, we should never stop trying. And this is really poignant because it's like we have to see it to believe it. It's this idea that we are so desperate for affirmation. It's like we need that verbal affirmation to really believe that we're making a difference. And it is important. And we as humans need to get better at verbally affirming, as we have already established, whether it be writing or you just see the person, you're like, your hair looks gorgeous today, by the way. Right. We just need to start doing that more liberally. However, the point is being made that you need to be able to get to a place in your life where you do it simply because it is filling you with joy to be generous
Right.
and recognizing you might not get anything back, but when you can give without that expectation, there's so much abundance in that, even if you get nothing back and you have no idea how it could make that impact. And you did that so well in this book. Share that.
Yeah, well, that was that's one of the most, that's in the book. One of the first 20 letters was to my sister-in-law, and she was the one who really, in a text, she said, I've had, because so many people, even now, people are like, I'm so sorry I didn't respond to your letter, like 5 years later. I'm like, I'm good,
Yeah.
because one, the numbers, there were so many letters, there were so many responses that it got out of control. So
Right.
I was fine with that. But she said, she basically said, I've had a letter on my desk for 2 weeks trying to figure out what I'm going to say back to you. And she said,
Mm,
don't think because someone doesn't respond that that the letter isn't everything, because not everyone will know what to say back. And
yeah.
that it might have changed them. And I think that's it, and that's what you said. It's such a beautiful testament to our human nature, as we want to know, especially in the electronic age. We want to know. But
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times people have told me after the fact what the letter meant to them.
Yeah.
I was on vacation with my husband and my youngest son last week, and we stopped, and I had sent this person who's the daughter of one of my husband's friends a birthday card last
Mm,
year, and I put like unicorn stickers all across the back and like all this crazy stuff. And she said, and I knew nothing. This was like 8 months ago. I knew nothing
yeah.
about what happened to it. She didn't respond, because you don't have to respond to a birthday card. That's the beautiful thing about that. But she said
Right.
she had literally just had her first baby. She was
Mm,
losing her mind. She's trying to breastfeed this kid. A lot of people out there have been there. And she said
yes.
her husband's brother was staying with him, and she was literally about to lose all of her stuff. She said
Yes.
she walked out the mailbox thinking, man, I can't do this anymore. Like, I am
Yeah.
at the end of my rope.
Yeah.
And she said she pulled that birthday card out of the mailbox. She said it literally saved me.
Mm,
And I had no
yeah.
idea. I mean, this was 8 months ago. I
Yeah.
didn't even remember doing it. But
Yeah.
but but that but that's the beautiful thing about dropping something in a mailbox. You're not going to know. You're
Yeah.
not going to really ever know. You might get
Mm,
glimpses like that passage you just read said, but that's not just letter writing. That's in life. We can't stop
yes.
trying to
That's right.
do what we are so inspired to do, and it's going to be different.
Yes.
Each of us are going to have a different thing that we feel inspired to do. But this story, the story of you, Anna, is the story of people, following through on those things, not knowing what they're doing, and just deciding not to stop. You know,
Yeah.
to me, God was the reason I couldn't have stopped
Yeah.
even if I wanted to. And people give me a
Yeah.
lot of credit. I don't, I feel like I just did what I was supposed to do, but
Yeah.
the key is to keep encouraging each other to do whatever it is we're inspired to do. This story came to fruition to me because I had friends who saw it for what it was and pushed me through it, and a family
Mm,
who did those
mm,
same things.
mm. Well, it's such a beautiful testament, and the book is really inspiring me. And for me, it was really a reminder. For me, it was a reminder to slow down. I am an intentional person to a fault, actually. It's almost like because then that goes into everything. And so I'm all about like time efficiency,
Right,
which is one of the downsides to intention. And the downside as well is like sometimes I don't pause like I used to do when I was younger and I didn't have a business to run and I didn't have multiple children and I wasn't married. And so I had the time to be writing the cards, to be sending the notes, to be doing those things. Um and now that life has gotten so busy, I am not as good about that. And this reminder to me was it's worth slowing down, and it's not all about time efficiency. Like, the fact is there's beauty in just generously giving in those moments where I'm gonna receive nothing. There's no end goal. It's not gonna
right.
further my business or whatever. It's just simply to give joyfully and see someone, and then I need to take more time to do that, and that was for me personally, this really reminded me to do that.
That's that's beautiful, and I think that you know, I- the I think the common perception is if you write me a letter, if Anna writes me a letter and I receive it and you tell me, what I've meant to you or thanking me for something or, recognizing something in me, that the person who's going to feel the best about that is me, the recipient. But
Yeah.
I can tell you from experience, the person who's going to walk away the most changed is you. You are going to
Mhm.
be the one because it's going to do something to reorder your life. So there's two sides. And again, I called it a transaction because that's what it is. There's two sides to this transaction. One is the person at the mailbox who's literally, and I cannot overemphasize this, people are going to lose their minds if you write them a letter, if you write them a postcard, if you put a post it
Yeah.
note in an envelope, they will lose their literal minds. You will blow it up like you don't think you have you don't think you can. But even if you don't hear back from them, let's say you hear back from 1 in 5. I heard back from about 74% of the people who I wrote to. But even if you don't hear back from them, you can just sit back in bed at night and imagine boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom. Because I think almost the ones you have to imagine are better than the ones that you know about. Because
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, when you put your head on the pillow at night, you made a difference. And we're living in a world right now where we are over and over again reminded that we can't make a difference. We are reminded that the wall is too high, for us to
Yeah.
knock it down or to climb over it. We can't grasp people's hands on the other side. Well, I am
Mhm.
here to tell you that that is wrong. That is wrong. One, I will always frame it in our God is too big. I mean, our God will come up with some
Yeah.
crazy stuff,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
we let him.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people can frame that however they want to. That's the way I see it. But there's absolutely nothing big enough to separate us.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Dear Dana, that time I went crazy and wrote all 580 of my Facebook friends a handwritten letter. We will, of course, have the link to this in the show notes. Your website, if I'm correct, is amydaughters.com.
Correct.
And where else can they follow you
I've
and
got
all of your fun craziness?
my shenanigans. Yeah, I've got a Facebook author page, Amy Wineland Daughters, and then my Instagram is Smoking Hot Amy S.
Of course it
Obviously,
is. Of course.
obvious.
Why would it not be?
But all the links are on my website. And then I love to hear from people. And one of the great things about this story um, is is I'm sure you have a similar story. It's connected me to so many like-minded
Yeah.
people. And this
Yes.
podcast connection is a perfect example because here we've got
Yep.
two people on the line
Yep.
who basically
Yep.
are going for the same thing, but we're going
That's
about it in
right.
different ways. And now God
Mhm.
has connected us, in this
Yeah.
meaningful way. And you've allowed me to share the Dear Dana story with your audience, which is super humbling. But over and over again, I've heard from people who write letters, who write cards, who have inspired me to do more. I
Mm.
mean, stories of people who, you know, there's this lady who's like 85 who wrote me, and she said that she grew up on the street with like 12 kids. And so after
Mm.
reading Dear Dana or listening to one of the podcasts I was on, I can't remember, she wrote every single one of those kids on that
Wow.
street. and talked about the things she remembered. One guy had just retired and he picked 20 people from his life and he went and hand delivered 20 people who had an impact on
Mm,
him a letter. you
mm.
know
Mm.
so it's a beautiful thing. So feel free to contact me via email, and I'd be happy to discuss letter writing and impact and those things. So
And give us the best email address. And then do you have a physical address? People can send you a card if they desire to
yeah, if
that
people
you
want to
hand
email,
out.
yeah, if people want to just email me, and then I'll send them my
There you go.
address. Yeah,
Perfect.
and
What is the best email? Let's
my
get
bet
this on
my
air.
best, yeah, Amy Daughters at att.net, net, and that's my personal email address, so that'll get to me first. But I would love to hear, and I will give you my address, and we can write each other, because again, I'm going to write somebody, so why wouldn't it be you? you know
I love it. You guys, if you need a word of encouragement and you do not realize how it's going to change your own life, and if this is where you are at right now, I just encourage you to take Amy up on that, Amy Daughters at att.net. And let her know that you would like to write a letter. It's going to change your life. You're going to get to hear from her. And if you haven't already figured it out, your life will be improved and changed and made more beautiful when you hear from Amy. So I highly encourage you to shoot her an email. Amy, it's such an honor to have you. It was just like reading this was truly like a little smile from the Lord. I felt like just to see how he is pulling other people's lives in just amazing ways. And it just encouraged me to make sure I am following through on those tugs on my heart as well. So I just pray God's blessing over your heart, your home, and all of the many, many people that you write.
Thank you so much, Anna. It's an honor to be on with you, and I feel like God connected us and our audiences
Mm.
for a reason. So thank you very much for the work you're doing.
Thank you for watching the Imperfectly Empowered podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the channel by clicking below. And if you missed our last video, then be sure to check it out right here. We'll see you next time on the podcast. Your story matters, and you are loved.